Welcome to the another, I should say, Cottage Grove Community Center Facebook chat. I'm Mayor Myron Bailey, and I'm excited to be here this evening to share some additional information with you regarding the proposed community center referendum. I also will be joined in a little bit here by our Finance Director, Roland. And together we will answer a variety of your questions that may be around finance. So I wanted just to throw that out there to you too. Also with us tonight is our moderator, which is our recreational director, I promoted you. Recreational manager, Molly Petraszewski, and a team of others that are behind the scenes that are going to be gathering information as you enter your questions through the Facebook Live event. While you begin to send those questions in, we wanted to provide you with a quick short video about the potential community center. So here you go. For at least the last 20 years, I've been hearing it consistently about the citizens of Cottage Grove want a gathering place. They want to be able to do things here in Cottage Grove that now they have to go to other communities outside of Cottage Grove to actually do those things. And so after 20 years, we're finally here. We've done a lot of research and talking to the public to get an idea of what they're looking for. And this is what we're coming up with.
Cottage Grove residents take pride living in a community that thrives and prospers. On November 2nd, the City of Cottage Grove will ask residents to vote on a $39.2 million referendum to build a new community center. The plans for the community center are the result of many years of study and public engagement. The facility features several amenities, including an indoor playground, sports dome with walking track, climbing wall, multi-use spaces, and a 50-meter outdoor pool and aquatic center. The community center would be built with everyone in mind, with a variety of recreational and educational opportunities that all can benefit from.
Having an indoor playground area, having an indoor climbing wall, meeting rooms. Our seniors are telling us they want a place where they can meet. The reality is we don't really have a place where if you wanted to take your kid, or me, in my case, my grandkids, take them into some place, during the winter on a rainy day. There isn't any place here in Cottage Grove that I can do that. We hear about our sports groups. They're having to go hours, literally, in some cases, away to get space rented. And this would be another opportunity for them to do that here and not have to leave our community.
The community center would be built near the corner of Highway 61 and Keats Avenue, directly across from Cottage Grove Ravine Regional Park. This location provides easy access to major roads and connections to residential and shopping districts. If approved, the estimated tax impact on a $300,000 property would be $15 per month.
I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot more families staying in town. I think you're going to see a lot more, grandparents bringing their kids to whether it's the water park or the other options that are going to be part of the community center. But where this area is located too, I truly believe you're going to see some significant growth in our areas of our community that people are asking for. They want more restaurants, they want more entertainment options, they want more retail options. And I think that is really what this is going to bring, is kind of really grow that area and give a spot where we can finally get those kind of things that people are asking for.
Learn more about the referendum and vote on November 2nd.
All right, well, thank you for watching that short video. I think it gives you a good idea of kind of what the community center is going to be all about. I did want to mention, though, that our goal here today is to educate the residents that are on what you're going to be voting on coming November 2nd. And so before we keep moving forward, I'm going to have Molly share some information to kind of kick us off. Molly.
Great. Thanks, Mayor Bailey. As the mayor mentioned, my name is Molly Petraszewski, and I am your moderator for this evening's event. For those at home, I would like to start off with a few housekeeping items before we get rolling. As Mayor Bailey mentioned, the purpose of these community chats is to educate residents on the facts of the proposed referendum. As city employees, we are only allowed to provide information to educate the public on the referendum, and we cannot advocate one way or the other. The answers that Mayor Bailey and Finance Director Roland give tonight are answers we have at this moment that we have worked really hard to get with consultants and other recreational professionals. Also, just so you guys know at home, there is a slight lag between receiving comments and video broadcasting over Facebook, but rest assured we are reading through the comments and capturing your questions. Also, if we reach the end of our time and you feel we have not yet been able to answer your questions, please email us at communitycenter@cottagegrovemn.gov. We will be responding to those inquiries right up to Election Day, so you have plenty of time still to get your questions answered before voting. While we record some questions coming in from our Facebook Live audience, feel free to start sending those in. Robin, can you give us an overview of the three main topics you want to make sure residents understand tonight?
Thanks, Molly. Yes, there are three main topics that we want to cover. First is the total cost of construction, or what I refer to as the mortgage to build the community center. This is what the ballot question reads on the screen. The ballot question asks that the citizens okay a community center package that would be no more than $39.2 million. That would include things like the community center construction cost of $7.3 million, an outdoor aquatic center of $16.3 million, a sports dome of $4.5 million, site acquisition and development of $6.8 million, soft costs, which include engineering, architecture, and so forth, of $2.4 million, and then an inflation or escalation factor of $1.9 million. You could consider that the contingency funds. Secondly, we want to talk about operating costs. Once it's built, once we've paid for the mortgage, we have to pay for the daily operations of the facility. And those bills are like your household bills, your utilities, what it takes to cost to the staff, what it also takes to run the water and the sewer and so forth in and out of the building. And then thirdly, we want to talk about projected revenues. We've worked with consultants to estimate the number that's the best possible answer for revenues, and including user fees, potential partners, and rentals.
That's perfect, Robin. Let's start at the top. What is exactly the ballot question? What does it include? Walk us through that first step.
So the ballot question is essentially asking that residents, a positive outcome from the ballot question would mean that the city could take out a mortgage to build the facilities named in the question, and only the facilities named in the question. And the total cost cannot exceed $39.2 million. This would leave all properties in Cottage Grove with a property tax increase. For example, a $300,000 home is estimated to pay about $14 a month more if the referendum passes in property taxes. The mortgage is actually paid with bonds. The city issues bonds to pay for the construction of the facility. We're still working through some of the details on that. We've had a lot of questions in the community about facilities that might not have a longer life. So for example, we could take out a 20-year mortgage, or we could take out a 30-year mortgage. It will all depend upon what facets of the projects that we want to build. For example, the sports dome. We've heard that that's a 15-year life on that building. So why would we issue 30 years worth of bonds? We probably will take a look at issuing 15 years worth of bonds just to pay for that portion. We say $39.2 million, but it could be any combination of bonding to get us to that point.
Yes.
That's great, Robin. It's very clear how much it costs to build the community center, and the average property owner will pay $14 per month for the total length of the bonds. The second main topic you mentioned you wanted to cover is operating costs. Once it's built, how do we pay the monthly and yearly bills to keep it running? Mayor Bailey, do you want to explain this one?
Absolutely. So like most other recreational facilities that we have in Cottage Grove, like, for example, the ice arena, the golf course, our parks in general, recreational programming. Molly, obviously you and Zach run those, and the group here. The fact is the taxpayers subsidize those particular opportunities within our community. In essence, this is what we're going to be doing in this particular case too, should the referendum pass for the community center. What we're projecting at this point, as it relates to the community center, is that an average household would have an additional subsidized tax once the community center opens of $1 a year. So we're talking, in essence,
$1
or,
per
a month. Thank you. I'm
Yep.
sorry, $1 a month. Thank you, Robin. See, she's got to keep me good here. $1 per month. So whatever the initial amount for the bond would be one price, obviously, or one cost, and then there would be an additional $1 per year to help subsidize.
Per month.
Per month. I keep saying year. Sorry. I apologize.
Perfect. One thing that was brought up on the last Facebook Live event was projected staff needs. Robin, do you want to go over that slide to give residents a better idea of the amount of employees that will be needed to facilitate a center like this?
Sure, Molly. And this is based on our research that our consultants have done and our comparisons to other facilities throughout the metropolitan area of a similar nature. We're currently estimating about 6 full-time staff, including a manager for the facility, programming, and so forth. We're also then looking at about 100 part-time employees, and the majority of those would be because of the aquatic facility. We would need lifeguards and building supervisors and attendants and custodians and so forth. These are included in our projected operating costs, and we are budgeting for them as such. The third and final topic that we need to cover before we take other questions are projected revenues. And I'm going to cover daily fees and rentals. Mayor, do you want to cover the project partners when I'm done with that?
Absolutely.
There will not be a membership fee to use aspects of the community center. However, all amenities will have a daily user fee, and these will be in the shape of non-resident and resident fees. Residents would get a discount because obviously they're paying for the mortgage as well. Daily user fees make up most of the revenue, and the estimates that we've got, again, are comparisons to other community centers with similar facilities across the metropolitan area. There would probably be punch cards or seasonal passes for things like the pool or the indoor playground, but nothing requires a membership. Memberships at community centers are usually because of fitness facilities.
Absolutely.
And there will be rental fees. So just like our park facilities, if you wanted to rent a park shelter, you would pay, what, $20 an hour for the park shelter? Similarly, facilities at the community center for community rooms, birthday parties, turf rentals, etc., would probably run in that $12 to $20 per hour area for rental fees. We do this at the ice arena. We do this at the recreational programs. So we're used to doing this, and it would be consistent with what we're doing there. Again, we can only estimate revenue. We expect that about $1 million would come in revenue from the aquatic center, the sports dome about $600,000, the indoor playground about $100,000, and then other programs and so forth for about $300,000. We anticipate that in a year's time, we would think that there'd be about $2 million worth of revenue from the community center and all its operations. Looking to other successful models, we expect to subsidize the facility, as you said before, by about $100,000 to $250,000 a year, which equates to $1 per household per month.
There we go.
This will lead, Mayor Bailey, do you want to cover the project partners?
Absolutely.
And then we can start taking questions.
Absolutely. So on top of everything else that we're talking about with regards to the community center, we also are looking at partnerships. And some of the partnerships that are, some of you may recognize, some of you may not. The Cottage Grove Athletic Association obviously is working with us. They have a memo of understanding with both facility use for predominantly the dome, but also the actual office space and such within there. This early childhood family education is another one that is been involved in the discussions with us with memos of understanding. Community ed, programming and such at the community center. And then the one that a lot of people might not be aware of, and that is, I want to make sure I get the name right because it's kind of a tongue twister, is the Southeast Metro Shark Swims Club. And they are very interested in the outdoor pool, and they want to do events and such within the pool. So that's pretty awesome to see. So those are some of the groups that we're already in negotiations with or have already expressed an interest to rent space or well, I guess would be space or the pool or such into the future.
That's great, you guys. We have covered the three main finance areas of the referendum: the total cost, what is on the ballot, our operating costs, which are yearly and monthly expenses, and then revenues, fees from programs, rentals, and money coming in from our partners for sure. So now let's start taking some questions that have come in off Facebook that maybe we haven't covered yet. And again, to those of you at home, if you feel more comfortable sending in your questions, the email address to send them to is communitycenter@cottagegrovemn.gov. So our first question comes from Mary, and Mary wants to know, how long will residents be paying the increase in taxes, and when would that start?
I think I'll take that one, and then Robin, you can add in. So I would just share with you, I don't know if we're going to have the slide up there. We'll see if we can put it up there. We have some information that we can share with you. So with regards to, when would it start? What we are looking at doing is actually breaking up the maximum amount of money is $39.2 million. What we're proposing to do, and I want to make sure I get my numbers right because this is a number show, is in 2022, our intent would be to issue about 10 million in bonds, and that would be, in essence, to get the land, the infrastructure, some of the pieces of the design and such going for the community center. In 2023, we would then, at that particular time, start construction. And in 2023, the first portion, which we just said would be about $10 million, would start affecting, if you will, the taxpayers in Cottage Grove. And then in 2023, we would issue the remaining $29.2 million at that particular point, and that would finish up the construction costs and all the other pieces that go with the community center. Our target right now, if everything moves forward and is approved, is that we would do a grand opening in 2024, and that is when the taxpayers would see the full value or the full amount that is coming out of their taxes. Now, as Robin mentioned earlier, we are still assessing kind of the situation as it relates to how long are we looking at doing these bonds, 15, 20, or 30 years. So I would share with you two things. One is, once the bonds are paid off, that's it. This isn't one of those referendums that just keeps paying, you don't keep paying in year after year after year beyond the $39.2 million. The other item that I think is very important to remember is Cottage Grove, as we all know, is growing. And with Cottage Grove growing, so for example, Robin mentioned earlier, somewhere around $14 or $15 a month for a $300,000 home. At that point, as we continue to grow, that cost factor of the community center is going to be spread out over more businesses and residences that move into Cottage Grove. So the actual cost per household is going to decrease over time because more people are paying into it. We're not just going to keep taking more money and then pocketing it or putting it aside. That's just not what we're going to do. So I want to make sure that that is very clear that this is kind of the high, if you will, and as years go on and we continue to grow, that number is going to go down.
Great. The next question that's come in, Chris asks, have there been any projections on what this project would bring in regarding outside money into the city? Robin, do you want to take that one?
Outside money, I'm sorry.
Like shopping, maybe more development, things like that. Any projections or
as
ideas?
the mayor was saying earlier on, the area that we're building this, we would be building the community center in, is a wide open area at this point, and we do expect that it would bring in significant economic development in the form of retail and commercial development, as well as apartments and so forth. There's no telling how far we can go with this, simply because of the if you build it, they'll come perspective. A lot of economic development just needs that spark to come into the community and develop further with the community center. So we don't have any projections at this time, but we certainly can get a bigger estimate if Mary would like an answer we can send it to her.
Perfect, yeah.
The other thing, maybe I'll just jump in on that, and Robin brings it up very clearly. One of the things that we're seeing and hearing from our development staff is we are getting a lot of interest from developers in this particular area, let alone other parts of Cottage Grove, but in this area. But all of them are in essence waiting for the community center referendum to either be a yes or a no. Some of them are interested in buying portions of the property, some are interested in buying all of it. So everybody's kind of waiting, if you will, with bated breath to see what the voters of Cottage Grove decide before they make that determination. And then one last thing I'll pop in there too, and bringing in money from outside the community. Put aside the user fees if the community center passes. That would be higher, if you will, for outside Cottage Grove residents, non-residents. The fact of the matter is, every time we run tournaments, whether it's hockey, whether it's baseball, softball, we just had the national softball tournament earlier this July, millions, and I know it's hard to put that into perspective, but millions of dollars of revenue came into our city to support our businesses. There were many businesses that were running out of food. And so when these kind of things are happening and we're hearing from our business community, they want to be aware of these events and things coming. They're excited to hear some of this stuff and the fact that we're looking at doing something like this. So I just want to throw that out there as an opportunity.
Absolutely, that's great, you guys. Our next question from the viewers, Ashley asks, why is 40% of the budget going to an aquatic center when it can only be used seasonally? Maybe addressing the difference between an indoor and outdoor aquatic facility. Mayor Bailey, do you
want to take that one?
yours.
Okay. So I would just share with the general public that early on, I think it was a couple years ago, we had come out with a proposal for a community center with the dome, but we didn't have any type of an aquatics facility. We heard loud and clear from the public that they wanted aquatics. And so we kind of went back, I'd almost say, to the drawing board and reassessed, what we could do. We did look at indoor options. We looked at outdoor options. And I'm going to give an example that we've been hearing from the public on some social media sites. And that is, well, it's going to cost, $1,000 or $1,200 a year for a family to use a community center or a facility. Typically, those facilities are indoor water parks along with indoor fitness. This facility is outdoor, and what we've noticed in talking to all those communities that have outdoor water parks, like whether it's Hastings, Cascade Bay and Egan, or the Apple Valley Water Park, their cost factor is much less for an outdoor water park, yet they still get very good participation both from the community and outside the community for that reason. So that is why this proposal has been put out there, is literally for that purpose, is because we heard loud and clear that they want water. And I should also mention, we do have some additional internal water options within the school district that, in other times of the year, if people do want to swim indoors, it would be that option. But at this point, we think that the best value and the best opportunity for our community is to do a larger event outdoors.
And the New Hope facility that we actually looked at in order to form our ideas about this shows that the majority of their costs for that outdoor facility are covered by their revenue. So it's a better revenue to expenditure coverage than, say, an indoor water park or an indoor pool that doesn't necessarily recover that much of the revenue or the expenses with the revenue.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm not sure which one of you wants to answer this, but maybe you speak to the part about naming rights and how could that potentially offset some of the fees and some of the taxpayer money if there were to be naming rights on a community center like this.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have actually had, and I think the city has too, but I've actually had businesses or consultants, if you will, reach out to me and ask about the opportunity to work with us on naming rights. As a matter of fact, this particular company that had reached out to me said that they had somebody that was interested in a business that was interested in our naming of our community center. However, in these cases, what they're saying to us, and what we've said to them, so it's kind of a mutual thing here, is we're not going to negotiate with them a price or anything. until the actual community center has been approved. So if the voters do approve a community center, we will begin the negotiations of what would be the value of a naming opportunity here. And our goal is the amount of money that we would gain from naming rights would actually go to help subsidize the yearly cost of operating the community center. And I mean, it could, depending on what the naming rights would be, it could actually provide opportunities for maybe lesser fees, different things that we can do to make it a better value for the Cottage Grove citizen.
And it could be in the form of either upfront money, meaning it would come in at the beginning and we could put it away and use it as time went on, or it could be an annual payment that we would receive, similar to other revenue sources. So it could be in both areas.
And I believe the Woodbury facility is a yearly. I think that the one, used to be Bielenberg Center, that one is a yearly subsidy that they pay into the city of Woodbury for operating expense and the lease and such within that facility.
Great. It seems like there's a couple questions coming in. Maybe if we just go over this time frame, the time schedule again that's up on the screen. There's just a couple questions. Maybe just say it one more time so people hear.
Absolutely.
But if the referendum passes, then what? How does the timing work with construction payments when our bills due?
Perfect. So what I can do, and we do have our kind of process laid out. I don't, in the notes that I've got specifically, it's not literally broken down to months, but it is within the year. So in 2022, so next year, we would sell about $10 million in bonds. And again, that price or that amount of money would be to purchase the land, begin the infrastructure piece of it, the design of the community center. At the same time next year, we will continue with finalizing the design and then launch out for bidding. So the bid process to begin the phasing of the project. We do expect there might be some infrastructure pieces that will be done next year, or at least started next year, but the actual construction of the community center would actually begin in 2023. The goal then in 2023 would be to issue the remainder of the bonds, which is $29.2 million, and that would cover all the remaining costs to build the facility and all the other pieces that go with that. Our target is at hopefully early, we'll see, but it'll depend on weather and construction seasons and such. But we are hoping to open sometime in the spring of 2024, but for sure in 2024 at this point. What will happen, just so the public is aware, the initial $10 million in bonds that will be sold next year, that particular amount, which I don't know if you could even do it off the top of your head, but that particular number would start affecting the taxpayers would see it on the on their tax statements in 2023. But the remainder or the majority of it would not even start hitting taxpayers' forms or their property taxes until 2024.
So we actually have been using the $14 additional taxes. So think about it this way. In 2022, after we issue the initial debt, that number might be a $5 increase to your annual $5 increase to your monthly property tax bill. Then in 2024, after all of the bonds have been issued, then we would go to the full $14, which would be the total amount for the debt that we issued per residence per month.
Absolutely. And I will say real quick, because I think it's important for the public to know, financially speaking, and I mentioned this to Robin earlier today because somebody asked me a question on social media, financially, the city of Cottage Grove is in great shape. Our team here, led by Robin and Jennifer and such, has done an amazing job of managing the expenses. So what that means, though, is our bond rating is really good.
Yep.
And so for us to go out to get bonds, we get a better rate than many other cities out there. So our goal, we don't know what that number will be, but we always, and Robin does this is a good thing, Robin always errs on the high side. So she always wants to be conservative in the number. So, and what I mean by that is, if the worst case scenario could be X number, Robin will say that's the worst case scenario, but typically we come in below that. So we can all celebrate the fact that that's our goal. Now, we can't guarantee that,
Nope.
but we can guarantee that it's not going to cost the taxpayers over $39.2 million. It could be less.
Great. Lou at home asks, why can't the user fees cover the costs of construction? Maybe this is a two-part question to also address what the user fees could potentially look like.
Well, all right, so that's on the user fee piece, I guess what I'll do is, oh, you've got it up there, good. So on the screen, I'm going to use the New Hope facility as the example because let's talk specifically about the water park. So the water park is 16.73 million?
16.3 million?
I don't have it directly in front of me, 16.3 million. So to operate the water park is a separate cost, right? And so we've talked about that. And the majority of the cost of the $1 per month that we're talking about really is the water park. So you got to look at that right off the bat. If you look at New Hope, right now, New Hope is charging $10 a person with a day in their water park. So I suppose we could try to figure out what it would cost for the average user. But my gut would tell me if you think it's a $16 million project and a $10 user fee is going to cover, well, you said $1 million, from a revenue standpoint. So $160?
Yeah, it would be very expensive.
I'm just putting that out there because I'm trying to think of it, if we're trying to generate $1 million to cover expenses per year, and it's a $16 million facility, that means if just using that $10 number, you got to times that by 16. So, so I think it's like $160.
It would be very expensive, and as you know, Molly, with recreation programs and facilities, there's a kind of a fine spot, the kind of sweet spot, if you will, between what can we charge before we see the impact on people actually using the facility. So we have to have that combination of the number of people using the facility and the correct amount to charge for fees. So it's like, we used this analogy earlier. We call it a mortgage. If you build your house, you have to pay the mortgage, but you can't really use the operating costs as you go through. So like your utility bill or your, toilet paper or all the costs of putting up drapes or blinds or whatever. Those expenses are ongoing expenses, and you have to find a way to finance those and pay for your mortgage. We're doing the same thing with the community center. The ballot question is the mortgage, and the user fees are revenues that'll pay for those daily expenses.
Molly, before you maybe move on to another question, the other thing I'll throw in there, though, because this has been a subject that I've heard and maybe it's going to come up, and that has to do with the cost. We're going to use New Hope as an example because that's typically what people are asking about is what is it going to cost to use the water park. So as you notice on the chart that's up here, it's basically $10. And that is a number, though, that's a non-resident number.
Correct.
So in New Hope, I believe that number for residents is about $8 a day. Am I correct? I'm going to look just to see because I can't really see it from here. But I also want to share with you in New Hope, I believe, that they have what they call a seasonal pass. And the seasonal pass is $70. And on that $70, if you really break it out, you can go every day, whatever number of weeks or months or days that you want to for $70. And so there is a value, if you will, to buying a seasonal pass, and it is a New Hope. It seems like they've done really good with that over there. But in the case of our residents, they are going to get a discount. We have assured that. And then the last thing I'll mention on this is we want this facility to be open to everybody. This isn't one of those things where only a certain segment of our population can afford to use it. We'll figure it out. And I mean that sincerely. We're building this. This is a community center. This is a gathering place for our community. We'll make sure that if certain people are on fixed incomes or whatever, we'll figure that out like we do with all of our services within our city.
Absolutely.
We do it.
Absolutely. We're hearing some questions. Somebody asked, we hear about homeowner tax impacts. What about our commercial and apartment complexes? I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
I can
Yeah, you wanna
take
start?
that. We emphasize the residential component because obviously the residential owners are the ones who are going to be voting on this. Most commercial property owners, unless they, of course, live in the city, they don't necessarily vote. So we want to put forward the tax impact on the property owners who are going to pay the bill. As far as commercial and industrial goes, or retail, the percentage of taxes that they will be paying is on a different formula, and so it's harder to use a standard such as we're showing on the screen now. But we can give an example if I get a name, and I can certainly put that out on the community center page.
Sure. So maybe if businesses or places or apartments have questions, they could email that community center at cottagegrovemn.gov, and Robin's definitely on the receiving end of those emails.
Absolutely.
We'll get it.
And it's interesting you say that because I guess the main answer, though, is that it is not all just residents that are going to be paying for this.
Right.
All businesses, all property owners, no matter if you own a home here, there's a business, you would end up, you're going to end up contributing
Yes.
to the price of this community center.
And maybe, Robin, to expand on that, Jessica states it's not actually $14 because the number is based on the property value. Can you also expand on that, maybe using this chart to help people kind of see
Well,
it?
certainly. We used the $300,000 price point, if you want to use that. That is the average cost or the average value, market value, of a property in Cottage Grove right now. And so obviously, if you have a home that's worth $400,000, that's going to be a slightly higher amount per month because of the value of the property. And so it's a very dynamic formula that we use to determine what property taxes are on each property, and it is dependent upon the value of that property.
Great. Okay, let's see what else we have coming in here on Facebook. Maybe, Myron, you want to take this one. What are some of the benefits that residents could expect from this community center?
Good question. Well, I mean, other than some of the facilities or the opportunities to use some of the facilities without leaving Cottage Grove, I mean, external to the site, if you will, there's going to be trail access, opportunities for outdoor uses, access into the Ravine Park, either through, I love to say this, either over or under County Road 19. Within the facility will be great gathering spaces. So other than having an indoor playground, there obviously will be a variety of meeting room spaces, like I think you mentioned earlier, Robin, birthday rooms, things like that. We're going to have some type of a commercial kitchen, so there'll be an opportunity for teaching, right? Swimming lessons out in the pool, water aerobics, because there's certain things that we've been hearing from our seniors that they're interested in. Internal too, which I don't know, we don't necessarily talk a lot about this, is, we're going to kind of have what I'll call a theater in the round, where there's going to be an opportunity for people or groups to come in and play music, or we have our locally grown theater that likes to do those kind of things. That could be in there. And I didn't even touch on the dome. I mean, one of the things I've heard very clearly from our senior community is they want a place where they can walk year-round, not in the elements. And there will be an indoor walking track, which will be safe, meaning make sure that you don't have to worry about balls or things coming over. There'll be an opportunity for everything from soccer, softball, baseball, you name it, batting cages. I know Zach has been getting pressed to pickleball. So we're trying to figure out how do we incorporate pickleball, because that's a different type of court. So Zach has been tasked with trying to figure out how to make that all work. But our goal, again, is to make sure that there's a lot of opportunities here. And then lastly, and we kind of joked about this a little bit earlier, and that is there'll be maybe events and things that will happen at this site, whether it's inside or outside, everything from home improvement shows to maybe food truck kind of events, farmers markets, flea markets, you name it. Our goal literally is to have this place be a gathering place, and it won't cost a bunch of money to everybody to use on some of these kind of things.
Great, great. Another question that's come in is how would the CGAA, our Cottage Grove Athletic Association, use this facility, and how maybe would it add value to programs they currently offer?
Great question. I guess I'll take that one real quick and then you can add in. I actually had the opportunity earlier today to talk with Dan Harrison, who's the president of Cottage Grove Athletic Association. And one of the things that he tells me is the families in Cottage Grove that currently have to leave our community and literally, I know I said it in the video earlier, but it's true, they've had to drive hours in some cases away to get facilities, especially during the cold months or when it's raining outside, where you can't get out onto the fields. And the idea here is they're going to be able to utilize this facility. We do have what we'll call a memo of understanding, which is in essence, until we get everything finalized, like an agreement with them that they're going to, lease, if you will, a certain amount of time within the dome, but also they're looking at some office space and such within the facility. So what this will do is it's going to save. I mean, you could go down the list. Wear and tear, time out of with your kids and such, because if you can drive down the street and come to our community center and use our facility versus going up to, Vadnais Heights or West St. Paul or other places out there, that's going to save money for our local residents in order to do that and obviously have more options here in Cottage Grove.
Well, we all know how nice it is here in April in Minnesota. And in those not so nice times, I don't know about you, Mayor, but when my boys were playing baseball, we'd sit out in the snow and the rain and watch them play baseball in April. Well, if we've got a facility that CGAA participates in, maybe we don't have to sit out in the cold and the rain in April to watch baseball.
Well, and it's funny, just to put this out there too, our ice arena is phenomenal. We've got 3 sheets of ice there. It's being used consistently. Well, one of the things we did with our ice arena, because we heard from our athletic association and our families that they wanted indoor turf. So we actually went out and bought indoor turf, and we created an opportunity on one of the rinks up there to provide that indoor. Now, good news or bad news, here's what a double-edged sword here. Bad news is our ice time is getting higher. In other words, more people are using it for the purpose of the ice arena, which means we're not able to utilize the turf as much as maybe we would want. We have this dome that takes that issue away. So we'll still have that option for people when needed, but obviously they'll be able to utilize the dome in a more consistent manner.
Great. Amanda at home wanted us again to touch on how many jobs would this bring to the community, and any idea or guess during construction how many people a project like this would influence.
We talked about this earlier. We are anticipating about 6 full-time positions, from management all the way down to custodians and maintenance people, and then about 100 part-time jobs across all of the building, including the aquatic facility, primarily the lifeguards for the aquatic facility. As far as, construction jobs, wow, I can't even address that. I don't know enough about the construction industry to know how many jobs it would bring to the community for this basically 2-year period that would be here from the time of construction starting.
Well, and I guess we could probably try to eventually kind of figure out those numbers as we go forward, but it would be significant. I mean, we do have some other businesses in town, like a proposal with North Point. Now, that's a significantly larger, $200 million, I believe, project, and they're talking about 1,000 construction jobs or better.
Right.
So if you kind of push that number down, if you will, and you think that our project is a $39.2 million project, you're probably talking 300, maybe 400 jobs over in essence a 2-year period,
right.
Which would be, I would assume in most cases, local type jobs. I know, matter of fact, that's one of the things we talked about is the ability to, I know we would have a construction manager and such, so they'd make the final call, but we'd really like to make sure that we can try to keep it as much local as we possibly can.
Exactly.
Right. So looking to the future, if this passes and is built, what do you foresee how local traffic would be handled kind of on this road as it starts to gain more and more popularity kind of between, the Walmart, Menards, all the way up here to the county and the city hall? How would you kind of foresee increased traffic would be handled?
I think I'll start that one. So it's a great question because one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did in this particular case is to make sure that it's connected, so that the community center is truly connected throughout the community. And whether it's connected by road systems or trails or whatever, maybe it could be, we have a DART service that goes around Cottage Grove for our seniors. It could be a situation we expect that we will provide some type of quote unquote bus service to the community center once it gets up and running. The road infrastructure would be the Ravine Parkway would in essence start down by kind of the entrance where it's currently by Walmart, and it would work its way up, and it's eventually is going to loop. This is where everybody's got to put their thinking caps on here. It's eventually going to loop into where the Washington County Government Center is. So it kind of goes up the hill and then kind of loops in and then connects County Road 19. Across from the Ravine Park, that's currently there, will be a crossroad, and that is the intersection or corner of that intersection where the community center would be located. Right. And I think pretty much everything, I would almost say south of it, will be a mixed use or full commercial, is kind of how we've got it laid out currently. So our ability to manage the traffic going forward into those areas, we're building the road for the future, so it isn't going to be built small and then figure it out later. Mm-hmm. We're going to make sure that there are some roundabouts involved in this, possibly some stoplights on County Road 19 and the new road that would be going in there. And then I would just share with you, looking down the road, no pun intended, once you cross the highway, our intent, and we're working with the county right now, is that 100th Street would be connected to, in a new road, in essence, would be connected to the bridge, which is Innovation, that particular road, so that there'll be an access point from the south coming from the other side of Cottage Grove to move people over to the community center and our commercial entities there.
Well, and if I could comment, a couple of years ago, 2017, 2016, that roundabout, the six-legged roundabout, was built right there at Innovation and the service road that goes to Walmart.
Douglas, yeah.
And that came out of a collaboration with the county, wherein we knew this whole area was going to develop. We weren't sure it was going to, be part of commercial, industrial, community center. But we looked far enough ahead to know that this area would develop, and we worked with the county to make sure that that six-legged roundabout works for the traffic that we're going to have coming into the facilities overall in that area.
Great. Okay, Robin, this question's totally up your alley.
Here we go.
Oh, boy.
For the folks that are tuned in, can you distinguish between the park's general funding and community center funding? Perhaps if people are concerned about a blank checkbook for this project.
Okay, that's a fair question.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So in our general fund, which is like the checkbook for the city, we budget for the park facilities, park maintenance, and then some of the recreational programming. And that is separate from the community center, which would become what we refer to as a special revenue fund. All of the revenues that would come in would only go to the community center programs, and all of the programs for the community center would be only those that were in that particular fund. So we would keep the two checking accounts separate. During the course of the year, we would pay for the operations of the parks themselves out of the general fund, and then the community center would be an entity unto itself, a separate checkbook, if you will, with revenues and expenditures that would come in and out of that fund.
Perfect. This works for us. So, Myron, maybe back to something you just mentioned. Jennifer asks, how much will these road and infrastructure cost for this project?
Great question. The specifics, I could probably look at my notes here.
I believe it's about 5.5 million.
The what is?
5.5 is
Yep.
what's projected for the road and
Okay.
infrastructure.
So thank you for that number. So you have that. I want to make sure we give clear numbers. But I would share with you, which is a great question, is currently, we were just talking about this a little bit ago too. We have in the bipartisan federal infrastructure bill,
The $1 trillion.
the $1 trillion one, we have 300, oh my goodness, I wish, $3 million that would be go towards some of the road and infrastructure improvements in this area. At this point, that has made it in essence through the House and the Senate, which means it's got bipartisan support. Now, as we all know, there's still things going on in Washington while they're trying to figure out the two different infrastructure, or those, I think they call it the Build Back Better plan or whatever.
Something like that.
And once they can kind of work through that, our belief is that 3 million, once they get it through but the House and the Senate at some point here, since it is bipartisan, and the president would sign it, then we would get an additional $3 million to put towards the infrastructure improvements on this road. So you mentioned the 5.5 million, so that would be 3 million of that
Right.
5.5 million would be covered.
Perfect, great. A couple last questions here before we wrap up. Will rentals occupy the entire facility, or will the general public have access to the facility as well?
I guess I'll take that one. The general public absolutely will have access to the facility. There are, as we said, there's partnerships in there. But what's kind of neat about some of these partnerships, by the way, is that they're going to be providing opportunities for the public to come in and do things. So community ed, as an example, they have a bunch of classes and programs that they do, early childhood education. So they're going to be doing those kind of things during some of these meetings. But will there be an opportunity if you want to have a birthday party or something at the community center? Yes, absolutely. The indoor playground is going to be open. If somebody wants to, I would say, rent the theater in the round or something like that, we can do that too. You're going to be able to have birthday parties and events out at the pool. There is, as we talked about, the East Metro Sharks Swim Club, or however we said that term. They do want to have certain events that they want to do periodically, but the majority of the time, it is going to be open to the public. And then lastly, of course, is the dome. We would make sure the lease arrangement that we've been negotiating with the Athletic Association would absolutely provide much opportunity for the public to come in and use it for just like open, I almost call it like open rec kind of situations on top of people actually using the walking tracks and such within there.
Great. Maybe just before we wrap up, Robin, would you mind kind of in closing, just recap the project costs and breakdowns, kind of how they are on the pie chart one final time for folks tonight?
Absolutely. So the 39.2 million is broken down into 16.3 million for the aquatic center, the community center building facility itself at 7.3 million, the sports dome for 4.5 million, site acquisition and development costs of 6.8 million, soft costs, which are engineering, architecture, planning, that's another 2.4 million. And then there is an inflationary factor built into this of $1.9 million, which could also be considered a contingency.
And can I jump in on that? Because that was a question that I've gotten people that have asked me is, well, they're a little concerned about, is the 39.2 million enough? Or in the sense of, because right now we're hopefully coming out of COVID, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And the cost of some of the lumber and stuff is higher than normal. We built in a fairly substantial buffer in there, if you will, because if anything, now is probably the time to have that bigger buffer. And again, if we don't end up spending it all, that isn't like we're going to charge everybody an extra amount of money.
Right.
That's not the case. But we wanted to make sure that we had enough contingency built in there so that what we're proposing can actually be built.
Right.
We don't want to later on have to cut back and say, well, we can't do, and just making this up, we can't do the lazy river because the expenses are too high. We are very confident in our numbers and in the ability to have a good contingency in there.
Great. Well, Mayor Bailey, Robin, thank you both very much for sitting down and talking finances and tax impact with us tonight. We've reached our time limit for tonight, but I wanted to remind everyone that if we were not able to get to your question, or if you have additional questions, you can always email us at communitycenter@cottagegrovemn.gov. And as we've mentioned before, all our staff emails, phone numbers, including mayor and council, are all over the website. You should have no problem finding any of us to reach out to. And if you wanted to re-watch this whole video, maybe you tuned in later or going to watch it later, just remember you can re-watch the Community Center chat in the event on our Facebook page, probably as of tomorrow. Now, Mayor Bailey, I'll hand it back to you for some closing remarks.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you to everybody for tuning in again. You know, our ultimate goal from day one is we're listening to the public. The public, through many different types of surveys and events and things that they've talked to us, they said they want a gathering place in Cottage Grove. And over many, many years, we have come to the point where we are today, I guess is what I would say. We've done our due diligence, pulled as much information together, community center task forces, you name it, and we are presenting this to the public for them to make the decision. Since I've been mayor, I'll just say this, since I've been mayor, that's been one of my big things, is the public needs to choose. There are some cities out there, I'm not gonna say the names, but there are cities out there that even though that they either voted down a referendum or whatever, they still went forward and built. The fact of the matter is we're not doing that. This is something that we want the citizens of Cottage Grove to own. And what I mean by own is this isn't something that, you know, to fix the street or have public safety or whatever. This is really for the public to use as an amenity. So I do want to thank Robin, our finance director, Robin Roland, for supporting and sharing her financial insights into this project. She's obviously open, as we've said, as I am and everybody else is. Thank you to Molly and all of our staff that are behind the scenes here that are helping put this Facebook Live event on and answering the questions that the public has. And thank you to SWCTC TV for broadcasting this. Again, our goal is to give you as much information as we possibly can, understanding that there are going to be certain things that we can't give you the exact number because we can give you the exact 39.2 million as the cap, right? Nothing more than that. But the fact is, you know, when it comes to what is it officially going to cost me in 2 years to get in, I can give you the examples that we gave you for the other community centers that are similar to us, and know that we will be right in that range. But I can assure you our goal here is to create something that's special for us in Cottage Grove, and we can all be proud of to call our gathering place. Thank you.